Soon, many believe we'll see the first stones of the Third Temple in Jerusalem. There's a mood in the city that's hard to name. Why are three faith traditions waiting for an event? From the offices where leaders negotiate behind closed doors to the tunnels mapped by archaeologists, from rituals preserved for centuries to the constant gaze of satellites, the question comes back strong. Are we closer than ever? Before we go on, go ahead and hit subscribe and turn on the bell, so each new chapter gets to you at the right time, and nothing on this journey slips by. On the surface, everything looks the same. Pilgrims go up and down, leave vows, the call to prayer echoes, synagogues fill up, the stones hold the day's warmth. But under that routine, something is pulsing. Signs are piling up, artifacts reappearing, architectural plans quietly revised, logistical instructions, trainings, and the return of red heifers. Is it a coincidence? Or is the stage being set piece by piece? To understand what might emerge, we need to step back. This is a crossing between past and present. Buried ruins, promises repeated generation after generation, and concrete preparations. The story unfolds not only in the alleys of the old city, but among nations and centers of power, and who knows, on a horizon that slips past the calendar. Before what's coming, there was what has been. Long before Jerusalem became the stage of empires and disputes, the first temple rose there, attributed to King Solomon almost 3 millennia ago, famous for cedar wood, worked bronze and gold in abundance, a landmark whose shadow still reaches the present. Built in reverence and planned in detail, that sanctuary was born as a meeting point between heaven and earth. Its foundation went beyond stone. It was a covenant. There rested the Ark of the Covenant, the tablets given to Moses, the fire that never went out. Tradition says Solomon raised it around the 10th century BCE. Under the city of David, ancient layers still hold signs of that time. Burned remains, fallen walls, the trace of Nebuchadnezzar II's Babylonian campaign in 586 BCE. Jerusalem fell. The temple in flames closed an era. From exile, though, came the return. From the ruins, the rebuilding. In the Persian period, around 516 BCE, the Second Temple was raised. Simpler than Solomon's, but just as consecrated. Centuries later, Herod the Great expanded it. Wide courtyards, porticos, platforms supported by huge blocks, many still fitted at the base of the mount. The glory was cut short again. In 70 CE, Titus's legions surrounded Jerusalem. Fire consumed the sanctuary once more and the city was shattered. In Rome, the Arch of Titus shows soldiers carrying the menorah, a scene fixed between triumph and loss. Today, the Western Wall remains quiet, a visible sign of this history, and the ground keeps speaking. Archaeologists have unearthed giant Herodian stones, layers of ash and ritual objects from both temple phases. Each find is a piece of a mosaic that reveals, layer by layer, the bond between faith, power, and memory that shaped Jerusalem. And now, right above the buried layers of the past, stands a complex that divides opinions. For many, a sign of hope. For others, a cause for concern. At the top of Jerusalem sits the Temple Mount. For Muslims, Haram al-Sharif, the noble sanctuary. For Jews, Har Habayit, the mountain where the divine presence was said to rest. It's not just a point on the map, it's ground contested inch by inch. Before we go on, go ahead and hit subscribe and turn on the bell, so each new chapter gets to you at the right time and nothing on this journey slips by. For the Jewish people, it's their most sacred place. That's where the first and second temples would have stood. That's where the fire of the offerings burned. That's where the Holy of Holies sat at the center of faith. For Muslims, it's Islam's third holiest site. The Dome of the Rock dominates the plateau, its golden roof catching the sunlight. On the south side, the Al-Aqsa Mosque has served as a place of prayer and pilgrimage for more than 1,000 years. Two traditions, one mountain, and a history marked by conflict, beauty, and devotion. Since 1967, when Israel took control of East Jerusalem, a fragile arrangement has been in place. The Jordanian Waqf administers the religious sites. Israel is responsible for security. A status quo was born, kept less by trust than by necessity. Jews can visit but not pray. Muslims guard access strictly. Any move, a dig started, a project announced, a political figure going up, can spark flames. And on this threshold between reverence and rivalry, the next scene unfolds. A whisper of construction is enough to ignite protests from Cairo to Jakarta. Why so much tension? What, after all, is buried beneath the surface? These questions lead us to the heart of the dispute, and to a story archaeology is still trying to assemble piece by piece. Under the modern city, under prayers and political pressure, the witness is the ground itself. For decades, excavations around the Temple Mount have gathered signs of decisive eras. In the city of David, to the south, mikvaot, ritual baths appear, burn layers and seals with inscriptions linked to priestly lineages. Each fragment suggests a temple culture woven into daily life and devotion. Near the western wall, tunnels revealed Herodian blocks, some weighing hundreds of tons, part of the structure that supported the Second Temple. They're not just stones. They're traces of a world that left its marks. But whenever the shovel gets too close to the mount itself, controversy explodes. The most striking example: in 1999, during renovations without formal authorization, the Islamic Waqf removed more than 9,000 tons of soil from the subsoil. The material was dumped in the Kidron Valley without scientific oversight. For many Israeli researchers, it was a loss with no return. That soil could hold contexts, dates, and connections that no isolated fragment can offer. And this is where the story changes tone, because the debate isn't about finds, it's about who tells the past and with what evidence. Over the years, volunteers sifted debris and sorted shard by shard. Out of it came ceramics, coins, and fragments spanning from the First Temple to the Ottoman era. But what was lost may never be known. The substructure of the mount remains almost inaccessible. Political pressure, religious sensitivity, and risks stall even cautious research. So the secrets stay under the stone, kept by silence. Before we go on, go ahead and hit subscribe and turn on the bell, so each new chapter gets to you at the right time and nothing on this journey slips by. While the digs run into barriers, another movement advances, not underground but in a modest room in Jerusalem's Jewish quarter. Since 1987, the Temple Institute has pursued a goal: to prepare the reconstruction of the temple, not as a metaphor but as a concrete project. Ancient texts turn into blueprints. Commandments take shape in metal, fabric, and wood. Service vessels once used by priests lost in exile have been remade. The golden menorah, the altar of incense, the Levitical garments. Everything on display like pieces waiting for a role. The vision doesn't stop at the objects. There are architectural plans and there is training. Men of the priestly lineage, the Kohanim, receive instruction to carry out temple service rites. It's not theater, it's a practical rehearsal. The topic stirs debate. Within Judaism, there are disagreements. For some, the temple can only be rebuilt by divine command or after the coming of the Messiah. For others, getting ready now is taking the step that, when the opening comes, will find people and instruments ready. Some argue the essential thing is to be ready, so that when the opportunity comes, no one is caught off guard. Outside Jewish circles, the debate intensifies. Critics see a risk of extremism or political unrest. Supporters, especially among Christian Zionists, point to the fulfillment of prophecies and the approach of the end times. The central question remains: how do you resume the temple rituals if biblical law requires ritual purity? That requirement depends on something rare, and the answer may already be underway. In Numbers 19, the ashes of a perfect red heifer, a cow without defect, without spot, that has never worn a yoke, must purify those entering the temple. And without that, the service doesn't start. For more than 2,000 years, no such heifer was accepted. Until, in 2022, a group of Christian Zionists from Texas sent 5 red heifers to Israel. They were received with interest and scrutiny. Rabbis examined them hair by hair. A single white or black hair disqualifies. Since then, the animals have been raised under strict watch. If, when they reach maturity, at least one remains without defect, it could fulfill the biblical requirement. And what comes next? The ashes of that heifer would open the way for priestly training, utensils, and access protocols, and would reignite legal and political disputes over who decides where and when. Every detail counts. A wrong step cancels years of preparation. It's on this tight wire that the story moves forward, waiting for the next step. An ancient element returns to the center of the debate: something that could restore ritual purity and reopen the possibility of temple service. For some, it's a curiosity. For others, a sign. For those who follow the prophetic line, it's a turning point. The question remains, are we seeing isolated steps or the return of something that seemed buried in time? If the pieces are lining up, how close are we to the next chapter? In front of the Temple Mount, above the graves that cut across the slopes, the Mount of Olives rises, a place of memory and promise. But beyond the symbolism, there's a concrete fact. An active fault runs beneath its base. Geologists confirm that the mount rests on the Dead Sea Transform Fault, an axis that starts at the Red Sea, crosses the Jordan Rift Valley, and runs up to Lebanon. Over the centuries, this system has triggered notable quakes: 31 BCE, 363 CE, and 749 CE, with significant damage in Jerusalem and the surrounding areas. Before we go on, click subscribe and turn on the bell. That way, each new chapter gets to you at the right time and nothing in this journey goes unnoticed. It's a sleeping giant beneath ground seen as sacred, and here history meets prophecy. In Zechariah 14:4, we read a future scene in which the Mount of Olives splits in two, half to the north, half to the south, opening a valley. When science points to the potential for rupture and tradition speaks of division, the question comes back with weight. Are we just reviewing ancient records, or are we getting close to a rare alignment between what's written and what the earth can actually bring about? For centuries, scholars and mystics have argued over whether certain passages are symbol or report. Recent geology suggests they can be both. Under Jerusalem, nothing is immobile. The mount that once felt Jesus' footsteps may shake again. If that happens, it won't be only the landscape that changes. Political lines and readings of faith will also rearrange. While the ground works in silence, history warns. Sudden turns arrive without notice. In 1967, the region erupted. In 6 days, Israel held off Egypt, Syria, and Jordan, redrew borders, and changed the future of the Middle East. But the decisive point wasn't at the front. It happened inside the walls of the old city. For the first time in almost 2 millennia, Jewish soldiers stood before the Western Wall. They cried, prayed, touched stones that had seen generations in exile. East Jerusalem, with the Temple Mount, came under Israeli control. It was a triumph, and at the same time a test of self-restraint. In the euphoria of victory, an unexpected choice. The Israeli government kept religious control of the Temple Mount with the Islamic Waqf. The idea was to preserve the status quo, contain new violence, and temper the outside reaction. That decision, taken under pressure and the spotlight, shaped a delicate balance that still holds the place. And this is where history, geology, and politics touch, setting up the next chapter. Jews were allowed to visit the mount, but not to pray there. The Waqf stayed in charge of daily routines, while Israeli security kept overall supervision. It was a compromise born of necessity and fear of what would come if the balance tipped too far. This arrangement didn't just move lines on a map, it redefined access, worship practices, and the very, however remote, possibility of rebuilding a temple. Constant vigilance isn't explained by technology, money, or fervor. It's explained because every gesture there is diplomacy on the knife's edge of war. The idea of a third temple doesn't run into engineering. It runs into international politics and the risk that a local act sends ripples across borders. The Temple Mount isn't just sacred. It's a political fault line that touches the heart of more than 1.8 billion Muslims. For many, any change in status, real or perceived, is a red line. Rumors of excavations or Jewish construction are enough to fill streets from Cairo to Jakarta, from Tehran to Istanbul. Embassies issue alerts, councils pass resolutions calling for caution. The United Nations, the European Union, and religious leaders repeat. Unilateral changes at the site tend to spark crises. The risk isn't local, it's regional, even global. Still, some argue that only a broad agreement can unlock the future. A deal able to balance faith, sovereignty, and security without snapping the thin thread that holds the peace. Before we go on, click subscribe and turn on the bell. That way, each new chapter gets to you at the right time, and nothing in this journey goes unnoticed. Some maintain that a future peace deal could open a door that, until recently, seemed closed. shared access to the mount, and even parallel worship areas. The idea circulates in low voices behind heavy doors. For those who want the temple's return, it would be the long-awaited chance. For critics, it's a match over a powder keg. The stakes are clear. It's not just devotion. Rebuilding the temple would be a latent geopolitical shock beneath the surface of a city where past and future walk side by side, and where the ground rarely stays still. While Jerusalem draws the spotlight, something broader is moving around it. North of Israel, a triangle of influence is taking shape: Iran, Russia, and Turkey. Each country stakes a presence in Syria, Lebanon, and nearby areas, with bases, intelligence posts, and alliances that would have sounded unlikely a decade ago. Some read this advance as strategic chess, a fight over energy routes, trade corridors, and regional primacy. Others hear echoes of ancient texts. Ezekiel 38 describes a northern alliance hostile to Israel. Researchers disagree on maps, names, and symbols, but the parallels feed debates that cross pulpits and parliaments. Even those who set prophecy aside don't ignore the growing tension around Jerusalem, a city smaller than many modern airports. That sparks an uncomfortable question. What happens when belief, territory, and power touch the same point on the map? Every diplomatic gesture, every excavation, every speech echoes in alleys, border posts, and meeting rooms. And as alliances thicken in the north, the regional clock seems to speed up, marking a rhythm few can control. In Jerusalem, everything seems to line up at a delicate point where belief and force face each other without veils. On one side, centuries-old conviction. On the other, plans, trainings, and negotiations that are no longer just whispers. What once sounded remote is taking shape in projects, archaeological research, legal debates, and moves on the regional board. Each piece pushed reopens old questions and projects new expectations. Under the stones and above them, something is moving. For millions, this is the map of an ancient promise. For others, it's the sum of history, politics, and faith converging at their own pace. In both cases, the effect is tangible. Preparations for a temple have left the realm of ideas and stepped into the daylight, waiting only for a window in time to open. If that moment comes, it won't be discreet. Rebuilding would mean redrawing alliances, lines of authority, and pilgrimage routes. It will cost concessions, demand unlikely pacts, and bring to the surface memories of disputes that never faded. Even so, for many, the question isn't if, but when. Jerusalem remains the place where past and future touch. As administrative acts, underground fines, and surface signs pile up, the question changes shape. It's no longer whether change will come, it's by what paths will it move forward, and what will it ask of a world that watches closely every new step. This is where we wrap up for today. If this topic makes sense to you, leave your comment. How do you think this change might come, little by little or all at once? If you want to keep digging into this with me, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. In the next video, we'll follow the trail of these moving pieces and understand what changes when politics, history, and faith touch the same map. Thanks for the company and the time. Take care, keep a sharp eye, and I'll see you in the next chapter.